Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Gran Torino found Deku first. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world was unfair. It wasn't a philosophical statement, nor was it a moody teenage lament. It was a statistical fact, quantifiable by the Census Bureau, observable in the hierarchy of the playground, and ratified by the superhuman society that had bloomed over the last century. 80% of the population possessed a quirk, a metaphysical ability that defied the laws of physics. They were the protagonists of reality. They breathed fire, bent steel, walked through walls, and soared through the skies. And then, there was the remaining 20%. The extras. The background characters. The quirkless. Izuku Midoriya sat at his desk, the wood scarred by years of graffiti that he had long since stopped trying to scrub away. The late afternoon sun of Mizurufu filtered through the windows of Aldera Junior High, casting long, orange shadows that stretched across the classroom like prison bars. The teacher was droning on about career aptitude tests, a monotone buzz that felt like a drill boring directly into Izuku's temple. Since you're all third years, it's time to think seriously about your future, the teacher said, slapping a stack of papers against his podium. I would pass out these handouts on your desired careers, but... He paused, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. He threw the papers into the air. Why bother? I know you all want to be heroes. The classroom exploded. It was a cacophony of cheers and the activation of quirks. Hands turned into stone, eyes glowed with laser precision, and minor telekinesis sent pencils rattling against the ceiling. It was a display of individuality, of power, of potential. Izuku shrank into his seat. He kept his head down, his hands trembling slightly as they gripped the edges of his desk. Don't look up. Don't make eye contact. Just exist quietly until the bell rings. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, the teacher said, calming the zoo. But remember, it's against the law to use them in school. Hey, teach! The voice cut through the noise like a whip crack. It was rough, arrogant, and smelled faintly of burned sugar. Izuku flinched. He knew that voice better than his own heartbeat. Katsuki Bakugo leaned back in his chair, his feet resting casually on his desk. Don't lump me in with these losers. As if I had anything in common with a bunch of extras who'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some D-lister bust. The class erupted in outrage, shouting insults, but Bakugo merely scoffed, small pops of nitroglycerin sparking in his palms. Shut up. Extras should act like extras. Ah, Bakugo, the teacher said, checking his clipboard. You're aiming for UA High, aren't you? The silence that followed was absolute. UA High. The pinnacle. The training ground of all might. It was the Olympus of the modern age. That's the only place worth my time, Bakugo declared, jumping onto his desk. I aced the mock exams. I'm going to surpass All Might and become the top hero. My name will be etched into the gross earnings charts for eternity. Oh, the teacher muttered, oblivious to the tension he was about to unleash. Come to think of it, Midoriya wanted to go to UA too, right? The silence shattered. It wasn't just laughter. It was a physical force. The entire class turned to look at Izuku. They pointed. They howled. They clutched their stomachs. Midoriya? No way. You can't get into the hero course just by studying. They got rid of that rule, but there's no precedent. What are you gonna do, bleed on the villains? Izuku stood up, his face burning. They got rid of the rule. There's just no precedent, that's all. Boom. Bakugo was there in an instant. His palms slammed onto Izuku's desk, the explosion blasting Izuku backward. He tumbled out of his chair, hitting the floor hard, the air knocked out of his lungs. Hey, Deku! Bakugo loomed over him, smoke curling from his hands. His red eyes were narrowed, filled with a mixture of confusion and intense irritation. You're below the rejects. You're quirkless. How can you even stand in the same ring as me? Wait, Kaken! Izuku scrambled backward, his back hitting the wall. It's not like I'm trying to compete with you. I swear! It's been my dream since I was little. And, well, I won't know unless I try. Try? Bakugo's voice dropped an octave. It was terrifyingly quiet. Try what? Taking the entrance exam just for fun? What the hell can you do? You're defenseless. The class continued to laugh, a chorus of mockery that drowned out Izuku's weak protests. He looked down at his red shoes, the oversized red sneakers that were the hallmark of the quirkless toe-joint anatomy. He felt the familiar sting of tears in his eyes. Don't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. The end of the day didn't bring relief. It brought the ritual. Izuku was packing his bag, checking his phone for hero news updates. Mount Lady had made her debut today, causing massive property damage in the process, when the notebook was snatched from his hands. We're not done talking, Deku, Bakugo said, holding up the notebook. Hero analysis for the future, number 13. What's that? His diary? One of Bakugo's lackeys sneered. Hero analysis? The other laughed. Dude, give it up. You're delusional. Gee, give it back, Kaken, please, Izuku pleaded, reaching out. It represented months of work. Detailed sketches, notes on quirk synergies, weaknesses, ultimate move theories. It was his mind on paper. Bakugo looked at the book, then at Izuku. He didn't smile. He just clapped his hands together, sandwiching the notebook between his palms. Boom! An explosion ripped through the paper. Smoke billowed out. When Bakugo pulled his hands away, the notebook was charred black and smoking. Ah! Izuku gasped. Bakugo didn't stop there. He casually tossed the burnt remains out the open window. No! Izuku screamed internally, rushing to the window to watch his hard work plummet 3 stories down toward the koi pond. Bakugo walked up to him, placing a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Smoke rose from the fabric of Izuku's uniform where the heat lingered. Most top-tier heroes have stories about their school days. I want the shine of being the only student from this dump to make it to UA. So, for my sake, don't apply. Got it? Izuku couldn't speak. His throat was constricted by fear and a deep, crushing sense of inadequacy. He couldn't even look Bakugo in the eye. Bakugo turned to leave, his lackeys trailing behind him. At the door, he stopped. He looked back over his shoulder, his expression unreadable, almost bored. If you want to be a hero that badly, there's a quick way to do it. The room went cold. Believe that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof. Izuku whipped around, anger finally sparking in his chest. Why? Bakugo's hand crackled with small explosions. Yeah? What? The spark died. Izuku slumped. He said nothing. He did nothing. He was nothing. The koi pond was murky, filled with algae and the lethargic movements of overfed fish. Izuku fished his notebook out of the water. The fish were nibbling at the charred edges. That's not food, stupid, he whispered, his voice cracking. He shook the dripping mess. The ink was running, blurring his analysis of Kamui Woods. Hero analysis for the future. The title seemed to mock him now. Stupid Kaken, Izuku muttered, clutching the wet book to his chest as he walked out of the school gates. If I actually jumped, that would be instigation of suicide. Think before you speak. He tried to summon some indignation, some righteous anger, but it felt hollow. The truth was, Bakugo was right about the power dynamic. In this society, power was currency, and Izuku was bankrupt. He walked aimlessly. Usually, he would take the underpass to get home quicker, but today, he felt a strange aversion to the shadows. The darkness of the tunnel felt too much like the darkness in his head. Instead, he took the long way, heading toward the shopping district near the train station. It was busier, louder. Maybe the noise would drown out the voice in his head that was whispering, just give up. He walked past shop windows reflecting his disheveled appearance. A scrawny boy with unruly green hair, a burned uniform, and eyes that looked like they were constantly on the verge of spilling over. I can't give up, he muttered to himself, falling into his habit of mumbling. All Might didn't give up. He saves everyone with a smile. I need to find a way. Maybe I can build support items? No, the hero course requires combat ability. Martial arts? But without a quirk, the physical gap is insurmountable against emitters and mutants. But maybe, if I trained harder than anyone else. He stopped at a crosswalk. The light was red. Cars whizzed by, blurs of steel and glass. Who am I kidding? He sighed, looking up at the sky. A massive projection screen on a building was replaying All Might's debut video. The symbol of peace, laughing as he carried people out of a disaster zone. I am here. I'm not here, Izuku whispered. I'm nowhere. He was so lost in the screen, so lost in the misery of the day, that he didn't notice the light hadn't changed for pedestrians. He didn't notice the erratic swerving of a black sedan speeding down the road, its driver clearly fleeing from a minor crime scene blocks away. Izuku took a step forward. Midoriya, watch out! A phantom voice in his head, his mother's maybe, cried out, but it was too late. He stepped onto the asphalt. The sound of screeching tires tore through the air. Izuku turned his head. The grille of the black sedan was mere feet away. Time seemed to dilate, slowing down to a crawl. He could see the terrified expression of the driver. He could see the sunlight glinting off the hood ornament. He could smell the burning rubber. I'm going to die, Izuku thought. It wasn't a panic thought. It was strangely clinical. Bakugo was right. Maybe in the next life. He closed his eyes, bracing for an impact that would shatter his fragile body. Whoosh! It didn't feel like a push. It felt like being hit by a cannonball made of air. A sudden, violent force slammed into his midsection. The world spun, sky, pavement, building, sky, and the wind was knocked out of him with a brutal huff. Crash! The sedan slammed into the lamppost exactly where Izuku had been standing a microsecond ago. Glass shattered, metal crunched, and the horn began to blare continuously. Izuku was tumbling. He rolled across the sidewalk, scraping his palms and knees, before coming to a stop against a concrete planter. He gasped, sucking in air that refused to enter his lungs. His vision swam. Crazy kids, a voice grumbled. It sounded like gravel crunching under a boot. Walking around with your heads in the clouds. You trying to become roadkill? Izuku blinked, trying to clear the spots from his vision. He looked up. Standing over him was an old man? He was short, shorter than Izuku. He wore a white cape with a yellow jumpsuit that looked like it belonged in a history museum, accompanied by a thick gray belt. He had a bushy white beard and carried a wooden cane. But the most striking thing was the air around him. Steam, or was it compressed air, was whistling faintly from the soles of his boots. A hero? Izuku wheezed, finally managing to inhale. The old man ignored the question. He turned to look at the wrecked car. The driver was groaning, trying to open the airbag-crushed door. The old man moved. He didn't walk. He didn't run. One moment he was standing over Izuku, and the next, there was a yellow blur, and the old man was atop the car hood. He tapped the windshield with his cane. You stay put, criminal scum, the old man barked. Police are 2 blocks back. Don't make me rattle your brain. The driver froze, terrified by the sheer pressure radiating from this tiny elder. The old man hopped down and shuffled back toward Izuku. He looked annoyed. Severely annoyed. Hey, kid. You alive? The old man poked Izuku's leg with his cane. Why yes, Izuku stammered, scrambling to sit up. He checked his body. Scrapes, bruises, but nothing broken. The speed at which he had been moved was insane. If the old man hadn't known how to distribute the force, Izuku's ribs would have been dust. You saved me. I saved myself the paperwork of witnessing a fatality, the old man grunted. He squinted at Izuku. What were you doing? That car was louder than Mike on a Monday. You deaf? I was distracted, Izuku admitted, shame washing over him. I'm sorry. The old man's eyes narrowed. He looked down at Izuku's hand. Izuku was still clutching the burnt, soggy notebook. He hadn't let go of it, even during the near-death experience. What's that trash you're holding onto like it's gold? It's nothing, Izuku said, trying to hide it behind his back. Give it here. Wah, no, it's... The cane moved. It hooked around Izuku's wrist with surprising dexterity. A quick twist, a yelp from Izuku, and the notebook was in the old man's hand. Hey! The old man ignored him, flipping the soggy, charred pages. He adjusted his stance, leaning on his cane. Hero analysis. Number 13? You a stalker, kid? I'm observing. Izuku defended himself, scrambling to his feet. I want to be a hero, so I study them. I take notes on their quirks, their fighting styles, their conflict resolution. The old man hummed, flipping through the pages. He paused on the entry for Mount Lady. Then he flipped back to Kamui Woods. Then to a page detailing a local hero named Backdraft. Izuku waited for the laughter. He waited for the old man to toss the book into the street like Bakugo had. He's going to tell me it's useless. He's going to tell me to be realistic. Sloppy, the old man said. Izuku blinked. Huh, your handwriting is atrocious, the old man critiqued. And you focus too much on the flash. He tapped a page where Izuku had sketched Kamui Wood's lacquered chain prison. You talk about the tensile strength of his wood and the range. But you missed the obvious. The old man looked at Izuku with sharp, gray eyes. He telegraphs his attacks. He pauses for 0.5 seconds to root his feet before extending. A villain with speed would take his head off before the wood even sprouted. You analyze the power, boy, but you don't analyze the man. Izuku stood stunned. No one had ever, actually read it. No one had ever critiqued the content. They just saw the cover and laughed. I didn't think of that, Izuku whispered. His mind instantly began racing. Rooting needed for leverage, of course. If he's airborne, the recoil would spin him. So his weakness is aerial combat, but the old man continued, closing the book with a snap. The detail is decent. You've got a brain in that thick skull. He tossed the book back to Izuku. Izuku caught it, fumbling. Thank you? Sir, who are you? I've never seen a hero with your costume before. Are you retired? Are you active in a different prefecture? The old man ignored the barrage of questions. He was sniffing the air. Sausage, no? Taiyaki? He looked around. I was looking for a specific taiyaki stand. Supposed to be the best in Musudafu. You know where it is? Yes? Izuku pointed down the street. It's 2 blocks that way, near the station entrance. Good. The old man started walking. Then he stopped. He looked back at Izuku. He looked at the boy's trembling legs, his tear-stained face, the burned uniform, and the desperation radiating off him like heat waves. You said you want to be a hero, the old man said. Yes. Izuku said automatically. What's your quirk? Izuku froze. The question. The barrier. The end of the conversation. He looked down at his red shoes. I don't have one. The silence stretched. The sirens of the police cars were getting louder in the distance. I'm quirkless, Izuku forced out, the words tasting like ash. But I still want to save people. I want to be like All Might. I want to smile and say I am here and make everyone feel safe. I know it's impossible, everyone says it is, but I can't just. He looked up, tears streaming down his face again. I can't just stop wanting it. The old man stared at him. His expression was unreadable. He looked at the scrawny arms. The knock knees. The absolute lack of physical presence. You're right, the old man said. Izuku felt his heart shatter. Here it comes. It is impossible, the old man said bluntly. Not because you're quirkless. But because you're weak. Izuku flinched as if struck. You have no muscle, the old man listed, poking Izuku in the chest with his cane. Your posture is garbage. You have zero situational awareness. You almost died crossing the street because you were feeling sorry for yourself. You think a hero has the luxury of zoning out? You think All Might saves people by daydreaming? A hero is a tool of justice, the old man said, his voice hard. But a tool needs to be tempered. You're raw or soft. Useless. He turned away. Go home, kid. Play police officer or doctor. Heroes die. And you look like you'd die if a stiff breeze hit you. The old man started walking toward the taiyaki stand. Izuku stood there. The police cars arrived, officers jumping out to secure the scene of the crash. The crowd was gathering. Go home. Swan dive off the roof. I'm sorry, Izuku. Something inside him snapped. Not a violent snap, but a desperate, clawing refusal to let this be the end. This old man, whoever he was, moved like lightning. He critiqued Izuku's notes. He saw Izuku, not just a quirkless extra. Izuku ran. He didn't run away. He ran after the cape. Wait! The old man didn't stop. He was surprisingly fast for a walker. Please wait! Izuku yelled, catching up as they reached the corner. You're right. I am weak. I am useless right now. But I can learn. I have the notes. I have the drive. The old man stopped in front of the taiyaki stand. The vendor looked up, startled by the intense elderly man and a shouting teenager. 1 chocolate, 1 custard, the old man ordered. He turned to Izuku. You have a death wish, boy? I have a dream, Izuku panted, bending over to catch his breath. And you're strong. You moved faster than I could see. You're a speed hero, right? Please, tell me how to be a hero without a quirk. Tell me what I need to do. The old man took the bag of taiyaki from the vendor, handing over a few coins. He took a bite of the custard fish, steam rising from the filling. He chewed thoughtfully, staring at Izuku. What's your name, kid? Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. The old man swallowed. I am Gran Torino. Izuku's mental Rolodex spun. Gran Torino? I've never heard of him. Is he underground? Golden Age? Midoriya, Torino said. You worship All Might, don't you? Yes. He's the greatest. He's a fool, Torino spat. Izuku gasped. What? No, he's a symbol, Torino corrected. A pillar. And pillars crack when they bear too much weight alone. He preaches that anyone can be a hero with a smile, but he forgets the blood and broken bones it takes to get there. Torino walked over to a park bench nearby and sat down. He patted the spot next to him. Izuku hesitated, then sat. I taught him, Torino said casually. Izuku's brain short-circuited. Why you taught? All Might? Before he was the #1 idiot, Torino grunted. Back when he was just a tall, skinny brat with too many teeth and not enough sense. Kind of like you, but taller. Torino looked at Izuku. The gray eyes were no longer dismissive. They were calculating. Measuring. He had come to this city to check on Tashinori. He had heard rumors that All Might was weakening, that he was looking for a successor to One for All. Torino had intended to scold his former pupil, maybe smack him with his cane a few times for letting himself waste away. But then he found this kid. A kid who analyzed heroes with surgical precision. A kid who stepped into traffic because his mind was too loud. A kid who, despite being told by society and logic that he was worthless, was still chasing a cape. And he was quirkless. Tashinori was quirkless once too, Torino thought. But this kid, he's different. Toshi was a dreamer. This kid is a thinker. But a thinker paralyzed by fear. You want to be a hero, Torino repeated. You're quirkless. That means you have no projectile, no armor, no super strength. If a villain shoots you, you die. If a building falls on you, you die. I know, Izuku whispered. So, to compensate, Torino said, taking another bite of taiyaki. You need to be faster than the bullet. Smarter than the villain. And tougher than the building. He looked at Izuku. I can't give you a quirk, kid. Biology doesn't work that way. But I can teach you how to not die. I can teach you how to move so fast that by the time they realize you're quirkless, they're already in handcuffs. Izuku's eyes widened. You train me? I'm old, Torino grumbled. I'm retired. I came here for snacks and to yell at an old acquaintance. But... He looked at the burned notebook in Izuku's hand. I hate wasted potential. And I hate bullies. Torino stood up. The air pressure around him shifted. The casual old man vanished, replaced by a predator. It won't be the American dream training, Torino warned, his voice low. I won't have you hauling trash on a beach while shouting platitudes. If you train with me, you will vomit. You will bleed. You will wish you had taken that swan dive off the roof. I will break you down and rebuild you into something that can survive in a world of monsters. He pointed his cane at Izuku's nose. You have 10 months before the UA entrance exam. If you survive my training, you'll pass. If you give up, I leave, and you go back to being a victim. Izuku looked at the cane. He looked at the old man, Gran Torino, who claimed to have taught the symbol of peace. For the first time all day, for the first time in years, the heavy fog of despair in Izuku's chest lifted. It was replaced by a sharp, cold spike of fear. But fear was good. Fear was adrenaline. Fear was alive. Izuku stood up. He wiped the tears from his face. He clenched his fists, ignoring the stinging scrapes on his palms. I won't give up, Izuku said. His voice didn't stutter. Please. Teach me, Gran. Torino grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. It was a grin that promised pain. Good answer, Torino said. Meet me at Dagoba Municipal Beach Park tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. Wear running shoes you don't mind destroying. Dagoba Beach? Izuku asked. But that place is a dump. Exactly, Torino said. Lots of uneven terrain to break your ankles on. Now scram. I have a chocolate taiyaki to eat. Izuku walked home in a daze. The sun had set, and the street lights were flickering on. His uniform was ruined, his notebook was a soggy brick, and his body ached from the near miss with the car. But his mind was clear. He entered his apartment. I'm home, Izuku. His mother, Inko, rushed out of the kitchen. She took one look at his dirt-streaked face and burnt clothes and gasped. Oh my goodness! What happened? Are you hurt? Did those boys bother you again? She hovered over him, fretting, tears already gathering in her eyes. I should call the school. This has gone too far. Mom, I'm fine, Izuku said, surprising her with the firmness of his tone. I fell. And I dropped my notebook in the water. Oh, Izuku. Inko hugged him, burying her face in his shoulder. My poor baby. Izuku hugged her back. Usually, this was the part where he would cry too. Where they would both lament how unfair the world was. But tonight, Izuku didn't cry. He looked over his mother's shoulder at the All Might poster on his wall. The hero was smiling, flexing his muscles. I taught him. Gran. Torino's words echoed in his mind. Izuku gently pulled away from his mother. Mom, I'm okay. Really. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed early. I have to get up early tomorrow. Early? Inko sniffled. For what? Izuku paused at the door to his room. He looked back at his mother. He remembered the day the doctor told him he was quirkless. He remembered her apologizing to him, crying, I'm sorry, Izuku. He smiled. It was an All Might smile. It was smaller, nervous, but genuine. I'm going to train, he said. I'm going to be a hero. Inko looked at him. She saw the glint in his eyes. It wasn't the manic obsession of a child chasing a fantasy anymore. It was determination. Okay, she whispered, though she looked worried. Just be careful. I will. 4 a.m. The sky was a bruised purple, the sun not yet risen. Dagoba Municipal Beach was a graveyard of trash. Mountains of tires, rusted appliances, and driftwood choked the sand, stretching out to the polluted water. The smell was a mixture of salt, rust, and rot. Izuku stood at the entrance to the beach. He was wearing his gym uniform and his red sneakers. He was shivering, partly from the cold sea breeze, partly from nerves. You're late, a voice came from above. Izuku jumped, looking up. Gran. Torino was perched on top of a rusted refrigerator tower, crouching like a gargoyle. It's exactly 4 a.m. Izuku protested, checking his watch. If you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time, Torino stated, hopping down. He landed silently in the sand. Now, Torino began, pacing back and forth. I spent the night reading that soggy book of yours. Dried it out. He pulled the warped notebook from his belt and tossed it to Izuku. You have a tactical mind, Midoriya. You see patterns. But your body is a disconnect. Torino tapped his own temple. In a fight, thinking takes time. You need to turn that analysis into reflex. You need to move before you know why you're moving. Muscle memory, Izuku nodded. More than that. Flow, Torino corrected. Most heroes stand their ground and trade punches. They rely on their quirks to tank damage. You can't do that. You need to be water. You need to be air. You need to be the annoying fly that the giant can't sweat. Torino pointed his cane at the mountain of trash. All Might, that oaf, would probably tell you to clean this beach. Lift the heavy things. Build big muscles. Izuku blinked. That actually sounds like something he'd say. And it would work, for building mass, Torino admitted. But mass slows you down. We aren't building a tank. We're building a jet. Torino suddenly vanished. Whoosh! A blast of air hit Izuku's back, sending him stumbling forward. Don't stand still! Torino's voice came from the left. Izuku spun around. Nothing. Up here! Izuku looked up. Torino was bouncing off a pile of tires, ricocheting toward him. Dodge! Izuku threw himself to the sand, barely missing the yellow boot that whistled past his ear. Sloppy! Torino shouted, landing and immediately launching himself again. Get up! Use the environment. That trash isn't just an obstacle, it's your terrain. Climb. Jump. Hide. Izuku scrambled up a pile of rusted metal, his breath hitching. This is insane. He's actually attacking me. Analyze me, boy. Torino yelled, bouncing off a fridge to gain height. You wrote the book. What's my weakness? Izuku ducked behind a washing machine as Torino flew past. His mind raced. Speed. High mobility. He uses the jets on his feet for propulsion. He travels in straight lines, bouncing to change angles. Linear movement. Izuku shouted. You can't turn in midair. You have to bounce off something. Correct. Torino's voice echoed. So where am I going next? Izuku looked around. The washing machine he was hiding behind was the only solid object in a 5-meter radius. If Torino wanted to hit him, he had to bounce off the truck chassis to the right. Izuku dove to the left. Crash! Torino slammed into the spot where Izuku had been standing a second ago. The sand exploded. Torino stood up, dusting off his cape. He looked at Izuku, who was panting heavily, covered in sand and grime. Not bad, Torino grinned. You predicted one. Now, do it 1,000 times in a row without dying. He tapped his cane on the ground. Lesson 1, Parkour and Breath Control. If you can't breathe, you can't fight. If you can't run, you're dead. Start running. Izuku looked at the miles of trash, the treacherous terrain, and the demonic old man preparing to chase him. He grinned. It was a terrified grin, but it was there. Yes, sir! 2 weeks later, the change wasn't physical yet. Izuku was still scrawny. But his eyes were different. They were constantly darting, scanning, assessing. He was walking to school. He no longer took the long way. He took the underpass. As he walked into the darkness of the tunnel, he heard a sound behind him. A squelching, wet sound, a medium-sized invisibility cloak. A gurgling voice hissed. Izuku spun around. A massive sludge villain was rising from the sewer grate, a grotesque mound of fluid and malice. Perfect, the villain sneered, lunging forward. I'll just take over your body and, in the past, Izuku would have frozen. He would have screamed. Now, he heard Torino's voice. Linear movement. Telegraphing. The sludge lunged in a straight line. Izuku didn't think. He exhaled sharply, breath control, and dropped to his knees, sliding forward on the smooth concrete. The sludge tendril passed inches above his head. What? The villain gurgled. Izuku scrambled to his feet behind the villain. He didn't try to fight. He knew he couldn't hurt a fluid body with his fists. Run. Find a hero. Create distance. Izuku sprinted. He didn't just run. He vaulted off the tunnel wall, using the momentum to swing around the corner of the exit. Get back here! The villain roared, flowing after him. Izuku burst out into the sunlight. He scanned the street. No heroes nearby. But there was a fire escape on the building to his right. The ladder was lowered. Izuku didn't hesitate. He leaped, catching the bottom rung and hauling himself up. He scrambled up the metal stairs, putting vertical distance between him and the sludge. Damn brat! The villain hissed from the street below, unable to climb quickly. Suddenly, the manhole cover in the street exploded upward. I am here! A massive figure launched out of the sewer system. All Might landed on the pavement, his presence radiating pure power. Texas. Smash! The punch didn't even touch the villain. The wind pressure alone scattered the sludge instantly, blowing the villain apart into harmless droplets. Izuku watched from the second-story fire escape, his jaw dropped. The power. The sheer, overwhelming pressure. It was magnitudes greater than Torino. All Might stood up, coughing slightly. He began collecting the sludge into empty soda bottles with blinding speed. Are you okay down there? Wait, where did the boy go? All Might looked around, confused. Up here! Izuku called out. All Might looked up. He saw the green-haired boy clinging to the fire escape. Ah! Safe and sound. Good thinking, young man. Taking the high ground. All Might gave a thumbs up, his smile blinding. Well, I must be off to turn this evildoer in to the police. Wait! All Might! Izuku shouted. He wanted to ask. He wanted to know if a quirkless boy could be a hero, but then he remembered Torino. He's a pillar. Pillars crack. Izuku looked at All Might. He saw the slight tremor in the hero's leg. He saw the way All Might was favoring his left side. He's hurt, Izuku realized with a jolt. Torino was right. Thank you for saving me. Izuku shouted instead. Please take care of yourself. All Might paused. The generic hero's smile faltered for a microsecond, replaced by a look of surprise. He looked at the boy, really looked at him. I will. Stay safe, citizen. All Might leaped into the sky, vanishing in a sonic boom. Izuku slumped against the railing of the fire escape, his heart pounding. He had survived. He had dodged. And he had seen the cracks in the symbol. He pulled out his phone. He had a new contact saved simply as Old Man. He typed a message, encountered villain. Used slide dodge. Created vertical distance. All Might resolved the incident. No injuries. A minute later, a reply came. Acceptable. Be at the beach at 3:30 today. We start combat drills. Bring bandages. Izuku stared at the phone. He looked at his hand. It was still shaking, but he clenched it into a fist. I'm not a rabbit anymore, he whispered to the empty alley. I'm going to be a jet. He climbed down the fire escape and started running towards school. He was late, but for the first time in his life, he didn't care. He had work to do. The human body is capable of remarkable things. It can heal from broken bones, adapt to extreme temperatures, and endure days without food. But Izuku Midoriya was discovering that the human body had a very specific, very loud limit when it came to being used as a pinball by a retired superhero. Get up! Whack! The wooden cane connected with Izuku's shin, not hard enough to fracture, but hard enough to send a jolt of lightning straight up his nervous system. Izuku gasped, rolling sideways into a pile of damp sand. I'm up! I'm up! You're lying, Gran Torino said. The old man was standing atop a rusted vending machine, looking down with the judgmental glare of a deity who was disappointed in his creation. You're on the ground. The ground is where dead people live. Are you dead, boy? Feels like it, Izuku wheezed, pushing himself up. His arms trembled. His legs felt like jelly that had been set on fire. It was day 4. Or maybe day 5? He had lost track of time. The concept of a calendar had been replaced by the binary states of Torino is yelling and Torino is sleeping. Your center of gravity is too high, Torino lectured, hopping down. He landed without a sound. You run like a civilian. You run like you're late for the bus. When you fight, you don't run. You flow. Torino blurred. Izuku didn't see him move, but he felt the displacement of air. He instinctively ducked, a reaction drilled into him over the last 96 hours of abuse. A yellow boot whistled over his messy green hair. Better, Torino grunted, landing behind him. But you hesitated. You analyzed the sound, processed the threat, then moved. Too slow. By the time your brain says duck, a bullet has already exited the back of your skull. Izuku collapsed onto his knees, sweat dripping from his nose onto the dirty sand of Dagoba Beach. How do I move without thinking? Instinct is just analysis that happens faster than conscious thought, Torino said, poking Izuku's ribs with the cane. You have the data. You have that creepy stalker notebook memorized. Now let your nervous system do the driving. Stop clutching your butt and breathe. Torino took a deep, whistling breath, steam venting from his boots. Breathing is the throttle, kid. Panic constricts the lungs. No oxygen means no brain function. No brain function means you die. Control the breath, control the panic. Izuku closed his eyes. He inhaled. The smell of the ocean. The rot of the trash. The ozone of Torino's quirk. He exhaled. Again, Torino commanded. Izuku stood up. He raised his fists. They were scraped, bloody, and wrapped in cheap bandages. Yes, sir. Month 2, the logic of violence. School had become strange. For the first time in his life, Izuku Midoriya was not the nervous wreck of Aldera Junior High. He was still quiet. He still muttered. But the quality of the silence around him had changed. He sat at his desk, staring at the blackboard. His muscles ached with a dull, constant thrum that he had actually grown to like. It was a reminder that he was doing something. Hey, Deku. The class went quiet. The daily ritual. Izuku looked up. Katsuki Bakugo stood over his desk, flanked by his usual lackeys. The explosive boy looked irritated. He had been looking irritated for weeks now, mostly because his favorite punching bag had stopped reacting. You're zoning out again, Bakugo spat, a small explosion popping in his palm. Ignoring me? You think you're better than me because you stopped carrying that stupid notebook? Izuku looked at Bakugo's hand. Right palm. Sweat glands active. Nitroglycerin accumulation minimal. He hasn't been active today. Twitch in the deltoid. He's going for a shoulder shove, not a strike. In the past, Izuku would have flinched. He would have stammered an apology. Today, Izuku simply exhaled. A long, controlled breath through his nose. He shifted his weight in his chair, leaning back just 2 inches. Bakugo lunged forward to shove Izuku's shoulder, a move designed to knock him out of the chair. Because Izuku had leaned back, Bakugo's hand missed the shoulder by a fraction of an inch. The momentum carried Bakugo forward, off balance. He stumbled, his hand slamming onto the desk instead of Izuku. Bang! The class blinked. Bakugo blinked. Your spacing is off, Kaken, Izuku murmured, almost to himself. He picked up his pencil and went back to taking notes on the history lecture. Bakugo stood there, frozen. His hand was smoking on the desk. He looked at Izuku, then at his own hand. He hadn't missed a shove since he was 4 years old. You! Bakugo growled, his voice low and dangerous. What did you do? Nothing, Izuku said, not looking up. You just missed. I don't miss. Bakugo roared, raising a fist. Bakugo! Sit down! The teacher shouted from the front, finally intervening. Bakugo glared at Izuku. His red eyes were searching, hunting for the fear that usually lived in Izuku's eyes. He found fear, yes, Izuku was still terrified of social confrontation, but beneath it, he saw something else. Calculation. Bakugo scoffed and marched back to his seat, kicking a chair on the way. Damn nerd. Izuku didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He just checked his pulse. Heart rate 110. Adrenaline spike. Controlled. Good. Under his desk, his hand gripped his thigh, squeezing the sore muscle. Torino's voice echoed in his head, the bully relies on the reaction. Deny the reaction, and you disrupt their ODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. You acted before he decided. Month 4, the philosophy of the can. The sun was setting over Dagoba Beach, casting long shadows over the slowly diminishing piles of trash. Izuku was no longer just running. He was fighting. His opponent was Gran Torino. Well, opponent was a strong word. Victim was more accurate. Torino bounced off a washing machine, coming in low. Izuku saw the trajectory. He dropped to the ground, sweeping his leg to catch Torino's landing. Torino simply adjusted his air pressure, hovering for a split second longer than physics should allow, causing Izuku's sweep to miss. Then, gravity took over. Torino landed on Izuku's back. Oof. Face first into the sand. You anticipated the landing, not the quirk, Torino said, sitting comfortably on Izuku's spine. I can modulate my air output. You know this. Why did you commit to the sweep? I thought I had the timing, Izuku wheezed, sand in his mouth. You thought. Stop thinking. Torino hopped off and poked Izuku with the cane until he stood up. They walked over to the seawall to take a break. Torino pulled out a bag of frozen taiyaki he had been keeping in a cooler. He tossed one to Izuku. Eat. You need the sugar. Izuku tore into the fish-shaped cake. He was starving. He was always starving these days. His body was burning calories like a furnace. He had filled out, not like a bodybuilder, but like a gymnast, lean, wired muscle. His shoulders were broader, his legs defined. "You're getting faster," Torino admitted, chewing on his own treat. "But you're still soft." Izuku wiped crumbs from his mouth. "Soft? I did 50 laps with a tire tied to my waist this morning. Not physically soft. Mentally soft." Torino turned to face him. The old man's expression was serious. The playful, senile act was gone. "Yesterday, during the simulation, you hesitated to throw the pipe at the target because it looked like a person." It was a mannequin," Izuku said. "But yeah? I hesitated. Why?" "Because heroes don't hurt people. We save them," Torino sighed. It was a deep, rattling sound. "Midoriya. Look at me." Izuku looked. "There is a difference between a hero and a martyr," Torino said softly. "All Might. Tashinori. He struggles with this distinction. He believes that if he bleeds enough, if he smiles enough, he can save everyone." Torino tapped his cane on the concrete. "But self-sacrifice without power is just suicide. If you throw yourself in front of a villain to take a hit, and you go down, who saves the civilian behind you?" Izuku went silent. The question hung in the air. "You have no quirk," Torino continued brutally. "You have no durability. If you take a hit intended for All Might, you will explode. You will die, and then the villain will kill All Might because he was distracted by your corpse." Izuku flinched. The image was graphic. "You have to fight dirty, kid," Torino said, leaning in. "You have to survive. Because a dead hero saves 0 lives. If you have to break a villain's arm to stop him from detonating a bomb, you snap that bone. If you have to throw sand in their eyes to buy a second, you blind them. You are the underdog in every fight you will ever be in. You don't have the luxury of honor, but—" Izuku gripped his knees. "Isn't that villainous?" "It's pragmatic," Torino snapped. "Justice isn't about looking cool. It's about results. Did the innocent go home? Did the bad guy go to jail? Yes? Then it doesn't matter if you kicked him in the groin to make it happen." Torino stood up. "You want to be the symbol of peace? Fine. But symbols are made of stone. You are flesh and blood. Until you get some power, you are a tactical instrument. Be the scalpel, not the hammer." Izuku looked at his hands. He thought about the sludge villain from months ago. If he had just run in screaming, he would have died. "I understand," Izuku whispered. "Survival first. Rescue second." "Rescue through survival," Torino corrected. "Now give me 20 burpees. You're digesting too comfortably." Month 9, the incident. It was a Tuesday. The humidity was oppressive. Izuku was walking home from the grocery store, carrying ingredients for dinner. Gran Torino had left town for a few days, something about a lead on an underground trigger distribution ring in Narahata, leaving Izuku with a strict regiment of solo drills. Breath in. Step. Breath out. Step. Izuku practiced his rhythmic breathing as he walked. It had become second nature now. His resting heart rate was in the low 40s. He felt calm. Then, the ground shook. Boom. A plume of black smoke rose into the sky from the shopping district a few blocks away. Izuku didn't run toward it immediately. He stopped. He checked the wind direction. Smoke is blowing south. Fire? No, the smoke is too dark. Explosion. Old habits died hard. He wanted to see. He wanted to analyze. He jogged toward the crowd, weaving through the panicked civilians with the fluid grace Torino had beaten into him. He didn't shove. He found the gaps in the flow of people and slipped through them like water. When he reached the police barricade, he stopped. His eyes widened. It was the sludge villain. The same one from months ago. But this time, it had a hostage. "Don't come any closer." The villain roared, his liquid body expanding. Explosions rippled from the hostage's trapped hands, setting the nearby buildings on fire. Izuku squinted. The hostage, that ash-blonde hair, Kaken. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs. "It's my fault. The villain escaped because I distracted All Might that day?" "No, All Might captured him." "Did he drop the bottle?" "It didn't matter." Izuku scanned the heroes. Death Arms was holding back the crowd. Kamui Woods was busy with fire control. Mount Lady couldn't enter the narrow street. They were waiting. Waiting for someone with a suitable quirk. He's suffocating, Izuku realized. He could see Bakugo's eyes. They weren't angry. They were terrified. They were pleading. Izuku's body tensed. Torino's Rule 1, don't die. Torino's Rule 2, assess the threat. Threat, fluid body. Immune to physical trauma. Volatile quirk in hostage's possession. Weakness, the eyes. The mouth. It needs to solidify to hold the boy. Izuku didn't scream. He didn't yell Kaken and run in blindly. He dropped his grocery bags. He kept his yellow backpack on. He took a deep breath. Oxygenate the blood. He ducked under the police tape. Hey! Kid! Get back! Death Arms shouted. Izuku didn't listen. He didn't sprint. He moved in a low crouch, using the wreckage of a delivery truck as cover. He was silent. The villain was focused on the heroes. Stay back or I'll snap his neck. Izuku popped up from behind the truck, 20 feet away. He had a clear line of sight. He unslung his yellow backpack. It was heavy, filled with school books and 2 liters of water he used for weight training. Wind is negligible. Distance, 7 meters. Target, the left eye, which is larger and focusing on All Might, who wasn't there. Izuku spun. It wasn't a throw, it was a launch. He used his entire body, the kinetic chain linking from his legs to his hips to his arm. The backpack flew like a missile. Thwack. The heavy bag slammed directly into the sludge villain's enormous, bulging eye. Arg! The villain recoiled, his liquid form wavering. The grip on Bakugo's mouth loosened for a fraction of a second. Gah, hhh. Bakugo gasped, sucking in air. Izuku was already moving. He didn't run in a straight line. He zigzagged, making himself a harder target. You little brat! The villain lashed out with a tendril of sludge. Izuku saw it coming. Telegraphed. He slid on his knees, passing under the tendril. He popped up directly in front of Bakugo. Deku? Bakugo wheezed, his eyes wide. Breathe, Kaken, Izuku commanded. His voice was steady. Terrifyingly steady. Izuku didn't try to pull Bakugo out. He knew he wasn't strong enough to outmuscle the sludge. Instead, he grabbed the collar of Bakugo's shirt with one hand, and with the other, he jammed his fingers directly into the villain's other eye. Aya! The villain shrieked. Explode! Izuku shouted at Bakugo. Point your palms down and blast us back. Now! Bakugo, bewildered but operating on instinct, obeyed. He pointed his free hands at the ground. Boom! The explosion was massive. The force blew the sludge apart, loosening the grip completely. Izuku and Bakugo were launched backward. They hit the asphalt hard. Izuku tucked his chin and rolled, absorbing the impact, grabbing Bakugo's arm to pull him into the roll. They tumbled to a stop 10 feet away. I'll kill you! The sludge villain reformed, towering over them, blind with rage. I'll kill you both! Izuku stood up. He put himself between the villain and Bakugo. He raised his fists. He had no plan for this part. He had extracted the hostage. Now he was just meat. Torino is going to kill me if I die here, Izuku thought. The sludge descended. And then, the wind pressure changed. There was no sound at first. Just a sudden vacuum, as if the air itself was inhaling in reverence. Then came the impact. Detroit. Smash! A fist the size of a Thanksgiving turkey slammed into the villain. The air pressure alone created a tornado. The sludge didn't just scatter, it vaporized into mist. The clouds above the city punched open, changing the weather instantly. Rain began to fall. All Might stood there. He wasn't smiling. He was steaming. He looked back at the 2 boys. One was sitting on the ground, coughing, Bakugo. The other was standing in a combat stance, his knuckles white, his eyes scanning the mist for threats. Izuku. I really am pathetic, All Might murmured, his voice low. Preaching justice while I let children do the fighting. He stood tall, the rain hitting his face. I am here, he said, but it sounded like an apology. The aftermath. The scolding was inevitable. You were reckless. You could have gotten yourself killed. That was suicide. Death Arms was shouting, his face inches from Izuku's. Izuku stood at attention. He didn't look down. He looked Death Arms in the eye. The hostage was suffocating, Izuku stated calmly. His airway was obstructed for approximately 45 seconds. Brain damage begins at 3 minutes. You were waiting for a specialized quirk. You didn't have time. Death Arms blinked. That's not the point. It's against the law to use quirks without a license. I didn't use a quirk, Izuku said. I threw a backpack. Is there a law against littering during a crisis? The heroes went silent. Kamui Woods covered his mouth to hide a cough that sounded suspiciously like a laugh. I am quirkless, Izuku continued. I acted as a concerned citizen performing a rescue. I minimized danger to myself by using cover and distraction. I extracted the hostage. I survived. He bowed stiffly. I apologized for the disruption. He turned and walked away. The heroes stared at his back. They were confused. They were used to kids crying or bragging. They weren't used to a middle schooler giving them an after-action report. Bakugo sat in the back of an ambulance, a towel around his shoulders. He watched Izuku walk away. He didn't yell. He didn't say anything. He just watched, his hands clenching the towel. He didn't use a quirk. He just fought. The meeting. Izuku took the long way home. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by the familiar ache in his legs. That was stupid, he whispered to himself, his hand trembling now that the danger was over. Torino is going to break my legs. I engaged a villain without backup. I used a volatile asset, Kaken, as propulsion. That was pretty cool. I am here. Izuku jumped as All Might slid around the corner, striking a pose against the brick wall. All Might! Izuku gasped. Why are you here? The reporters. I shook them. All Might laughed, blood spurting from his mouth. Young man! I came to thank you. And to correct a mistake. All Might deflated. With a poof of steam, the muscular titan vanished, replaced by the skeletal, sunken-eyed man Izuku had met months ago. You! All Might wiped the blood from his chin. You jumped in there. You had no quirk. You had fear written all over your face, yet you moved. Why? Izuku thought about it. Because, he looked like he was asking for help. And my legs just moved, All Might smiled. Top heroes have stories about their school days. Most of them have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they could think. All Might reached out a hand. Young man. You have proven me wrong. You can become a he. Thwack. A cane flew out of the shadows, spinning like a boomerang. It cracked All Might directly in the shin. Ow. All Might hopped on one leg, clutching his shin. What the? You talk too much, Tashinori. Gran Torino stepped out from behind a telephone pole. He looked furious. Gran Torino? All Might turned pale. He actually took a step back, trembling. Yes, sir. You're alive. I mean, you're here. Of course I'm here. Torino barked. I saw the news. Sludge villain attack. I saw you punch the weather. Show off. Torino turned to Izuku. And you? Izuku snapped to attention. Sir, your aim was good, Torino grunted. But your extraction was sloppy. If the explosion had been 10% stronger, you would have shattered your eardrums. We're working on blast radius calculations tomorrow. Yes, sir. All Might looked between the terrifying old man and the scrawny middle schooler. Wait. Sir? You know this boy? Know him? Torino scoffed. I've been trying to keep him alive for 6 months. He's my student. All Might's jaw dropped. Your student? But you retired. You haven't taught anyone since me. Because you were a headache, Torino said. But this one? He listens. Mostly. Torino walked up to All Might and poked him in the chest with the cane. I heard what you were about to say, Toshi. You're looking for a successor. All Might got serious. Yes. My time is running out. The flame is dying, and you were about to offer it to the boy, Torino said. I was. All Might nodded, looking at Izuku. He has the heart. He has the spirit. He has no vessel, Torino countered sharply. Izuku looked down. He's right, All Might. I'm still weak. He's not weak, Torino corrected, surprising Izuku. He's unprepared. If you gave him that power right now, his limbs would blow off. Literally. Pop gone. All Might winced. I suppose that is a risk. It's a certainty, Torino said. One for All has grown, hasn't it? It's stronger than when Nana had it. Stronger than when you took it. Yes, All Might whispered. Torino turned to Izuku. Midoriya. You know All Might's secret. You know he's running on fumes. Yes. And you know he needs to pass his power on. I guessed. Torino looked at All Might. Tashinori, the boy is smart. He analyzes quirks. He dissects fighting styles. He's not just a brawler like you. If he had your power, combined with his brain, Torino grinned. It was the scary grin. He could be better than you. All Might looked at Izuku. He saw the bandages on the boy's hands. He saw the posture, straight back, alert eyes. He saw the shadow of Gran Torino's brutal training etched into the boy's frame. Young Midoriya, All Might said softly. My quirk. One for all, is the power to stockpile power and pass it on. It is a torch passed from generation to generation. I want you to take it. Izuku's eyes filled with tears. He had wanted to hear this his whole life. But now, hearing it, it felt heavy. It wasn't a gift. It was a job offer. He looked at Torino. The old man nodded once. Permission. Izuku wiped his eyes. I will do it. I'll be the vessel. Not yet, you won't, Torino interrupted, ruining the moment. You have 10 months until the entrance exam. We've wasted 6 just getting you to stop tripping over your own feet. Torino pointed his cane at All Might. Tashinori, you're going to help. I am? All Might pointed at himself. You're going to teach him how to be a symbol. How to smile without looking like he's constipated. I'll handle the combat. You handle the, whatever it is you do. Posing? I inspire hope. All Might protested. Sure, Torino waved him off. Midoriya, get home. Eat protein. Sleep. Tomorrow, we start the real training. Now that we have a goal. Izuku bowed deeply to both of them. Thank you? Both of you. He turned and ran home, his tears flowing freely now. But he wasn't running blindly. He was maintaining a steady pace, checking his breathing, his feet landing softly on the pavement. Month 10, the transfer. The beach was clean. It wasn't sparkling. It was still a beach near an industrial district, but the mountains of trash were gone. It had taken 10 months of grueling labor, interspersed with combat drills that bordered on torture. Izuku stood on the seawall, shirtless. He wasn't a hulking mass of muscle. He was compact. Wiring. His body looked like it was made of braided steel cables. Scars from sparring with Torino littered his arms. Impressive, All Might said, standing next to Torino. The hero looked proud. He cleaned the whole thing. He truly is ready. Physically, maybe, Torino grumbled. Technically, he's still green. Izuku walked over to them. He didn't look exhausted. He looked ready. I'm finished, Gran Torino. All Might plucked a single strand of golden hair from his head. Young Midoriya. This is it. The culmination of your efforts. He held out the hair. Eat this. Izuku stared at the hair. Then he looked at Torino. Is this a joke? Just eat the damn hair, kid, Torino sighed. It's DNA transfer. Don't overthink it. Izuku grimaced, took the hair, and swallowed it with a gulp of water. Gross. Now, Torino said, stepping forward. You have the power inside you. It will take a few hours to digest and integrate. But when it activates, if you try to use it like All Might uses it, you will die. Right, All Might nodded. Clench your buttocks and yell smash from the depths of your heart. Whack. Torino hit All Might in the knee. Stop teaching him garbage. Clench your buttocks? Are you trying to give him a hernia? Torino turned to Izuku. Listen to me. All Might is a naturally strong idiot. He could handle 100% from day one. You can't. If you try to punch with 100%, your arm will turn into confetti. So, what do I do? Izuku asked. The microwave principle, Torino said. Remember the taiyaki? If you heat it up too fast in the microwave, it explodes. You need to lower the wattage and heat it evenly. Izuku's eyes lit up. Spread the power throughout the body? Instead of focusing it in one point? Exactly, Torino said. Full cowling. That's the name I gave it. Don't focus on the punch. Focus on the flow. Let the power circulate like blood. 5%. No more. Izuku closed his eyes. He could feel something. A hum deep in his stomach. A quelled spring. Try it, Torino commanded. Just a spark, Izuku breathed. Breath control. The throttle. He visualized the power not as a pool to draw from, but as a network of veins. He let it trickle out. Bzzzt. Green lightning sparked around his body. It was faint. Erratic. Don't force it. Torino barked. Let it flow. Izuku relaxed his shoulders. The lightning stabilized. He opened his eyes. They were glowing faintly green. I feel light, Izuku whispered. That's 2%, Torino critiqued. Pathetic. But safe. He raised his cane. You have 2 days until the exam. In those 2 days you are going to learn how to move in that state without tripping. Attack me? Izuku smiled. The lightning crackled. Yes, sir. He moved. He didn't run. He skated across the sand, the power amplifying Torino's movement techniques. He was fast. Not All Might fast. Not Gran Torino fast. But faster than any quirkless boy had the right to be. He threw a punch. Torino caught it with his hand, but the old man slid back an inch. Torino's eyes widened slightly. He didn't break his arm. He regulated the output on impact. Not bad, kid, Torino grinned. Now again. Faster. All Might watched from the sidelines, a strange mixture of pride and terror on his face. He watched the green lightning dance around the beach, chasing the yellow blur. The trembling rabbit was gone. The jet was just starting to rev its engine. The hair tasted like old rope and metaphysical responsibility. Izuku Midoriya sat on the edge of the seawall, the taste of the number 1 hero's DNA lingering on his tongue like a bad decision. The sun had fully risen now, casting a harsh, exposing light on the pristine beach he had spent 10 months cleaning. The sand was golden, the water was sparkling, and his stomach was churning with a mixture of anxiety and digestive confusion. Well? All Might asked, leaning forward. The massive hero was vibrating with anticipation, his grin wide and expectant. Do you feel it? The power surging? The embers kindling into a roaring fire? Izuku rubbed his stomach. I feel like I swallowed a hairball. Is it supposed to happen instantly? Gran Torino, sitting on a cooler nearby and picking his teeth with a splinter of driftwood, snorted. It's not instant noodles, Toshinori. It's biology. The DNA has to integrate. The quirk factor has to merge with his own genetic sequence. Give it a few hours. Right. Biology, All Might said, straightening up and clearing his throat. I knew that. Of course. Izuku looked down at his hands. They were calloused, scarred, and wrapped in tape. They were the hands of a fighter, forged in the fires of Gran Torino's sadistic pedagogy. But they were still, fundamentally, the hands of a quirkless boy. So, Izuku said, his voice quiet. I just wait? No, Torino said, hopping off the cooler. You don't wait. Waiting makes you stiff. We have 48 hours until the UA entrance exam. Every second you spend sitting there digesting is a second you aren't learning how to not blow your arms off. Torino pointed his cane at the open stretch of beach. Run. Keep the blood pumping. Help the integration along. Izuku didn't argue. He slid off the wall, his red sneakers hitting the sand. He started to jog. Step. Breath. Step. Breath. The rhythm was automatic now. 10 months ago, a jog like this would have winded him in 3 minutes. Now, his resting heart rate was that of a marathon runner. His legs moved like pistons, efficient and tireless. As he ran, he thought about the power. One for all. The ability to stockpile power and pass it on. It was a torch, All Might had said. A sacred fire. But to Izuku, thinking with the cold, analytical mind Torino had cultivated, it wasn't a fire. It was a battery. And he was a device that had never been plugged in. Torino said, my body is a vessel, Izuku thought, turning at the end of the beach and sprinting back. If the voltage is too high, the circuits melt. All Might is a high-capacity industrial machine. I'm a smartphone. I need to regulate the input. Pick up the pace. Torino yelled from the sidelines as Izuku passed. You run like a turtle with a limp. Izuku accelerated. He didn't know when the power would kick in. He didn't know what it would feel like. He just hoped he survived the boot-up process. Hour 4, the spark. It happened during a push-up. Izuku was on his 300th rep. His arms were burning, the lactic acid building up in his triceps. All Might was spotting him, or rather, standing over him shouting motivational quotes, while checking his watch nervously. Push beyond. Plus ultra. You can do it, young Midoriya. Feel the burn and smile at it. Smiling is hard, Izuku gritted out, lowering his chest to the sand. As he pushed up, straining against gravity, he felt it. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't an explosion. It felt like someone had injected carbonated water directly into his veins. A fizzing, electric sensation started in his stomach and shot outward, racing along his nervous system. What is this? The world seemed to sharpen. The sound of the waves became deafeningly clear. The grain of the sand under his palms came into high definition. HRK. Izuku gasped. Young Midoriya? All Might stepped closer. The fizzing intensified. It turned into heat. It felt like his blood was boiling. Power, Izuku realized. This is it. Without thinking, he tried to complete the push-up. But his brain, wired for his normal strength, sent the usual signal. Push hard. The one for all energy latched onto that signal and amplified it by a factor of 1,000. Boom. The sand beneath Izuku's hands exploded. It wasn't a metaphorical explosion. A crater 3 feet wide blasted outward, sending wet sand raining down on All Might and Torino. Izuku was launched into the air, not by his legs, but by the sheer recoil of his arms pushing off the ground. He flew 10 feet up, flailing, before gravity reclaimed him. He landed on his back with a heavy thud, the wind knocked out of him. Cough! Cough! All Might waved the cloud of sand away. Young Midoriya! Are you alright? Izuku lay there, staring at the sky. His arms were vibrating. They felt numb, hot, and terrifyingly heavy. Izuku lifted his right hand. It was trembling violently. Faint red lines traced along his skin, like veins glowing under the surface. I didn't break them. You got lucky, Gran Torino said, appearing above him. The old man looked grim. You pushed off the sand. The ground gave way before your bones did. If you had done that on concrete, your wrists would be powder. Izuku sat up, clutching his arms. The sensation was fading, retreating back into the pit of his stomach. That was too much, Izuku whispered. It felt like I was holding a down power line. That was 100%, All Might said, nodding solemnly. Or close to it. It is a lot to handle. A lot? Izuku looked at his idol. All Might, that wasn't a lot. That was unmanageable. If I punch someone with that, I'll kill them. Or I'll kill myself. That is why you must visualize the egg. All Might declared, striking a pose. Imagine the egg in the microwave. You must heat it up without letting it explode. Izuku stared at him. The egg? Yes. Control the output. Clench your. Whack. Torino's cane slammed into the back of All Might's knees. The symbol of peace buckled. Shut up with the egg. Torino barked. And stop talking about his butt. You're confusing the boy. Torino turned to Izuku. Midoriya. Ignore him. He's a natural. He doesn't know how to explain the mechanics because he never had to learn them. He just turned the key and the engine started. Torino poked Izuku in the chest. You're a thinker. So think. What happened just now? Izuku closed his eyes, replaying the sensation. I wanted to do a push-up. I sent a signal to my pectorals and triceps. The energy, it flooded the channel. It was like trying to fill a water balloon with a fire hose. Exactly, Torino nodded. And what happens when you overfill the balloon? It pops. So don't fill the balloon, Torino said. Open the tap. Let the water flow through the whole system. Izuku frowned. The whole system? You're focusing the power, Torino explained, pacing around him. You're treating it like a special move. I need to punch, so I put power in my arm. Wrong. That creates a pressure point. The energy builds up behind the dam, and when you release it, bang. Broken bones. Torino stopped and tapped his own legs. When I use my jet quirk, I don't just pressurize my feet. I pressurize my lungs to handle the G-force. I tighten my core to stabilize the flight. I adjust my neck muscles so I don't get whiplash. The quirk is in the feet, but the support is the whole body. He leaned in close. One for all isn't a limb enhancer. It's a system enhancer. Don't summon it to your fist. Summon it to your existence. Izuku sat in the sand, the words tumbling around in his brain. Don't put the power in the arm. Put the power in the body. Like spreading butter on toast? Izuku muttered. Instead of leaving a big lump in the middle, All Might blinked. Toast? I like toast. Sure, toast. Torino rolled his eyes. Whatever works for you. Spread the power. Evenly. Everywhere. Keep the percentage low. 5%. Keep it constant. Izuku stood up. He shook out his arms. Visualization, he thought. Not an egg. That implies containment. This needs to be flow. He imagined the power in his stomach. But instead of pushing it to his arm, he imagined it as a fluid, green, electric water. He imagined opening the floodgates, but only a crack. He imagined the water flowing down into his legs, up his spine, into his shoulders, out to his fingertips. Constant flow. A closed loop. A circuit. HNNG. Izuku gritted his teeth. Sparks began to fly. Green lightning arced off his skin. His hair stood up slightly. Don't clench! Torino shouted, swinging his cane. Thwack! He hit Izuku's shoulder. Relax? You're stiff as a board. If you're stiff, the energy has nowhere to go but out. It's hard. Izuku strained. The lightning was erratic, popping loudly. Breathe. Torino commanded. The same breathing I taught you for the last 6 months. Oxygenate the blood. Calm the heart. Izuku forced himself to inhale. 4 counts in. Hold. 4 counts out. The lightning flickered, then stabilized. The angry popping sound settled into a low, steady hum. The green electricity danced across his skin, no longer wild arcs, but a glowing mantle. Izuku opened his eyes. They were glowing. He looked at his hands. The red veins were gone, replaced by the green energy coursing just beneath the skin. I'm doing it, Izuku whispered. He felt lighter. He felt like he weighed nothing. That's 2%, Torino critiqued, though there was a hint of a smile in his beard. Maybe 3% on a good day. But it's stable. It feels complete, Izuku said. He took a step. He didn't mean to jump. He just meant to take a step forward. But as his foot pushed off the sand, the power amplified the movement. He shot forward 5 feet in a blur, nearly tripping over his own momentum. He flailed, caught his balance with a handstand, and flipped back onto his feet. Whoa, Izuku gasped. All Might clapped his oversized hands. Bravo! Full cowling. You did in 10 minutes what took me. Well, I just did it, but it's impressive nonetheless. He did it in 10 minutes because I spent 10 months beating the concept of flow into his skull, Torino corrected. His body was already prepared for efficient movement. The power just gave him the engine to match the chassis. Torino walked up to Izuku. Hold it. Don't let it drop. Keep that hum going. Yes, sir, Izuku said, sweat beading on his forehead. Maintaining the state required immense concentration. It was like holding a heavy weight above his head, but with his mind. Now, Torino grinned. Hit me, Izuku blinked. What? You heard me. You have a new engine. Let's see how it drives. Come at me with the intent to kill, or I'll break your ribs. Torino vanished. Whoosh. He appeared behind Izuku, the cane already swinging. Izuku didn't think. The hum of One for All seemed to accelerate his synapses. He felt the air pressure shift behind him. He spun. Usually, his dodge would be narrow, a hair's breadth escape. But this time, the power in his legs fired. He didn't just spin, he rotated. He moved so fast he was a blur of green and black. Torino's cane passed through empty air. Izuku landed 10 feet away, in a crouch. He looked at his hands, eyes wide. I'm fast, he thought. I'm really, really fast. Good, Torino said, landing on a pile of driftwood. Again. The cram session, night 1. The sun had gone down hours ago. The beach was lit only by the street lamps from the road above and the eerie green glow of Izuku Midoriya. They hadn't stopped. Again, Izuku vaulted over a concrete barrier. He didn't just vault. He used his hand as a pivot point and swung his legs through with enough force to launch himself upward. He caught the edge of a rusty lamp post, swung around it, and landed on top of a vending machine. Parkour is about efficiency, Torino's voice echoed from the shadows. Getting from A to B with the least amount of resistance. But with that power, you don't just overcome resistance. You ignore gravity. Izuku panted, the green lightning flickering. I'm getting tired. Of course you are. You're running a marathon at sprint speeds, Torino said. Drop the cowling. Rest for 5 minutes. Then we do it again. Izuku let the power fade. The lightning vanished. He collapsed onto the top of the vending machine, staring at the stars. All Might climbed up the ladder to hand him a sports drink. You are doing remarkably well, young Midoriya. Most vessels would still be in the hospital with shattered fingers. Torino wouldn't let me go to the hospital, Izuku joked weakly, cracking the bottle open. He just set the bone with his cane and tell me to run it off. All Might chuckled, sitting on the edge of the machine. The metal groaned under his weight. He is intense. But he is right. I taught you to be a symbol. He is teaching you to be a survivor. Izuku took a long drink. All Might, this power. It's amazing. But it's scary. I feel like if I lose focus for 1 second, I'll destroy everything around me. That fear is good, All Might said softly. It means you respect the power. The day you stop fearing it is the day you become dangerous to the wrong people. Izuku looked at his hands. Can I ask, why me? Really? All Might looked out at the ocean. I told you before. You moved when no one else did. But it is more than that. I watched you these past months. I watched you clean this beach not because you were told to, but because you wanted to prove you could. You have a tactical mind, Izuku. You analyze. You dismantle problems. All Might looked at him, his blue eyes intense in the skeletal sockets. I am a hammer. I solve problems by smashing them. But the world is changing. Villains are getting smarter. More complex. The next symbol of peace cannot just be a hammer. He must be a scalpel. A jet. Someone who can think as fast as he can punch. Izuku swallowed the lump in his throat. I won't let you down. I know, All Might smiled. Break time over. Torino yelled from below, throwing a pebble that hit Izuku perfectly in the forehead. Get down here! We're doing ricochet drills. Izuku groaned, but he stood up. He closed his eyes. Breathe. Flow. Spread the butter. BZZT. The green lightning returned. Ready! Izuku shouted, jumping off the machine. The mechanics of the jet. By the afternoon of the second day, the novelty had worn off. Now, it was just physics. Izuku stood in an abandoned warehouse district near the beach, a location Torino had selected because property damage here improves the property value. You can't fly, Torino stated. I know, Izuku said, stretching his hamstrings. I don't have air jets. So stop trying to jump over everything, Torino corrected. You're spending too much time in the air. In the air, you have no traction. You're a sitting duck. My quirk works in the air because I can change trajectory. You can't. Once you jump, your arc is set. A sniper could take you out while eating a sandwich. Izuku nodded. He pulled out a small notepad, a new one, water-resistant this time, and scribbled, aerial movement equals predictable trajectory. Vulnerability high. So how do I use the speed vertically? Izuku asked. Wall bounding, Torino said. If you're in the air, you need to find a surface. A wall, a ceiling, a villain's face. You need to create a new pivot point, Torino demonstrated. He launched himself at a wall, hit it feet first, and instantly ricocheted at a 90-degree angle toward another wall. Bang! 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 He was a yellow pinball. I can do that because I shoot air, Torino explained, landing. You have to do it with friction and explosive leg strength. It's harder. You have to grip the wall for a microsecond before pushing off. Grip, then push, Izuku muttered. He faced the narrow alleyway between two warehouses. Full cowling, 4%. He ran. He leaped at the left wall. His foot made contact. In the past, he would have just pushed off and lost momentum. But now, he channeled the power into his toes. He bit into the brick. Push. He launched across the gap, hitting the right wall. He was higher now. Grip. Push. Left wall. Higher. Grip. Push. He was a green blur, zigzagging up the alleyway. The force of his kicks dislodged loose mortar from the bricks. He reached the roof in 3 seconds. He landed, skidding to a halt. I did it! Izuku yelled down. Too loud. Torino yelled back. You stomped on every landing. You sounded like a herd of elephants. Ninjas are silent. Do it again, and be quiet. Izuku looked down the dizzying drop. He smiled. Yes, sir. He dove back into the alley. The morning of the exam. The alarm clock didn't need to go off. Izuku had been awake for an hour, staring at the ceiling. Today was the day. He sat up. His body didn't ache. After 48 hours of one-for-all integration, his recovery speed seemed to have increased. He felt vibrant. He got out of bed and looked in the mirror. He wasn't the trembling boy who cried when his computer crashed. He was lean, scarred, and his eyes held a steeliness that belonged to a veteran, not a student. He put on his school uniform. It felt tight around the shoulders. Izuku! Inko called from the kitchen. Breakfast is ready. He walked out. His mother was fussing over a spread of food that could feed a small army. Fish, rice, miso soup, pickles. You need your energy, Inko said, wringing her hands. Oh, my baby. Yue hi. Are you sure you're ready? It's not too late to apply for a nice general education school. Or maybe a technical college? I heard, Mom, Izuku interrupted gently. He walked over and placed his hands on her shoulders. Inko stopped. She looked up at him. She blinked. When did he get taller? When did his grip become so firm? I'm ready, Izuku said. He wasn't smiling the All Might smile. He was smiling his own smile, calm and assured. I've done the work. I'm going to pass. Inko's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. Okay. Okay. I believe you. She hugged him. Just, please don't get hurt. I'll try my best, Izuku promised. Rule 1, don't die. He ate quickly, grabbed his bag, and walked to the door. He slipped on his red sneakers. They were worn, the soles thinning from the friction of his training. I'm off. The gates of UA. The structure was massive. The glass walls of UA High glittered like a fortress of dreams. Students swarmed the entrance, a sea of black uniforms and nervous energy. Izuku walked toward the gate. He wasn't muttering. He was scanning. Target acquired, main gate. Obstacles, crowd density high. Status, calm. He took a deep breath. Out of my way, Deku. The voice was low, guttural. Izuku stopped. He didn't flinch. He turned slowly. Katsuki Bakugo stood there. His hands were in his pockets, his posture slouched, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at Izuku, really looked at him. He noticed the way Izuku stood, feet shoulder-width apart, weight balanced on the balls of his feet. Kaken, Izuku nodded. Don't think that little stunt with the sludge villain makes you a hero, Bakugo growled. You got lucky. You threw a backpack. Today, they test real power. I know, Izuku said. If you get in my way during the practical, Bakugo leaned in, I'll kill you. You can try, Izuku replied. It wasn't a taunt. It was a statement of fact. You can try. I will dodge. Bakugo's eyes widened slightly. He scoffed, looking away. Whatever. Just don't die in the first 5 minutes extra. Bakugo brushed past him, shoulder checking him. Izuku absorbed the impact. He didn't stumble. He barely moved. He watched Bakugo walk away. He's tense, Izuku analyzed. Shoulders tight. He's worried. Not about me, but about failing to be perfect. Izuku turned back to the gate. He took a step forward, and tripped. His toe caught on a slightly raised paving stone. Even with full calling training, sometimes clumsiness was a curse. Oh no! I'm going to face-plant in front of everyone. He braced for impact, his hands instinctively coming up to break the fall. But he didn't hit the ground. He stopped in midair, hovering parallel to the pavement. Are you okay? A bubbly voice floated into his ear. Izuku floated upright, his feet gently touching the ground again. He looked around. A girl with a round face, rosy cheeks, and brown bobbed hair was smiling at him. Her fingertips were pressed together. It's my quirk, she said brightly. Sorry for using it on you without asking, but it would be bad luck to fall right before the exam, right? Oh, Izuku blinked. Yes. Kinetic negation. Zero gravity? Yep. She beamed. I'm Ochako Uraraka. You looked really intense a second ago, staring down that scary blonde guy, and then, whoops. She giggled. Izuku felt the heat rise in his cheeks. Old habits die hard. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Thanks for the save. No problem. Good luck in there. She waved and skipped off toward the building. Let's do our best. Izuku watched her go. Social interaction successful, he thought. Didn't stutter. Didn't faint. Progress. He clenched his fist. The faint hum of one for all buzzed in his gut, a silent partner waiting for the signal. He walked into the building. The written exam. It was boring. That was the only word for it. Izuku breezed through the questions. English, math, hero history, quirk law. Torino hadn't just taught him how to punch. He had forced Izuku to read complex tactical manuals and legal briefs regarding collateral damage liability. Compared to calculating the blast radius of a compressed air canister in a crowded market, finding the value of X was a joke. He finished 20 minutes early. He spent the remaining time analyzing the structural integrity of the ceiling beams in the lecture hall. The practical exam, orientation. Welcome to today's live performance. President Mick's voice boomed through the auditorium speakers, loud enough to rattle teeth. Everybody say hey. Silence. Izuku sat in the middle row, his notebook out. He was sketching President Mick's costume, noting the directional speakers on his neck. Directional output implies vulnerability from the rear and flanks, Izuku wrote automatically. Mike explained the rules. 3 types of robots. 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. Destroy them to earn a score. Excuse me. A hand shot up in the row in front of Izuku. A tall boy with glasses and stiff posture stood up. Sir. The handout clearly lists 4 types of villains. If this is a misprint, it is a shameful error for a prestigious school like UA. And you. The boy spun around, pointing a stiff finger directly at Izuku. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here to sightsee, leave immediately. The auditorium turned to look at Izuku. Izuku looked at the boy. Tenya Ida? Somei Junior High. Engine quirk likely located in the calves based on the exhaust pipe protrusions. Izuku didn't shrink. He didn't apologize. He stood up. I apologize for the noise, Izuku said, his voice carrying clearly without shouting. However, I was noting that the 4th villain type is likely an obstacle with 0-point value, intended to test avoidance rather than combat. It's a standard variable in tactical simulations. He looked at President Mike. Am I correct, sir? President Mike blinked behind his sunglasses. Yeah. That listener is correct. Okay, the class murmured. He figured that out? Who is that guy? Avoidance variable. Makes sense. Ida looked stunned. He adjusted his glasses, looking from Izuku to Mike. I see. My apologies for the interruption. He bowed stiffly and sat down. Izuku sat down. His heart was hammering a little, but his face remained calm. Torino taught me to own the space, Izuku thought. Don't let them rattle you. All right. Mike yelled. The 4th villain is the 0-pointer. It's huge. It's mean. If you see it, run away. That's not a joke. Now get to your battle centers. Battle Center B. Izuku stood in front of the massive gates of the fake city. It was an impressive construct, skyscrapers, streets, traffic lights. He was wearing a simple green tracksuit he had bought at a discount store. It was light, breathable, and cheap enough that he didn't care if it got ruined. He tightened the laces on his red sneakers. The other examinees were stretching, checking their gear. He saw the girl, Uraraka, taking deep breaths nearby. He saw Ida revving his engines. They were all nervous. Izuku closed his eyes. System check. Legs primed. Lungs clear. One for all, standing by. He reached deep inside and turned the valve. Bzzzt. The green lightning flickered across his body, visible only as a faint shimmer in the daylight. He dialed it to 3%. A low, sustainable hum. And start! Present Mix's voice yelled from the tower. Most of the students hesitated. They were waiting for a countdown. Izuku didn't wait. Torino Rule 14. In a raid, the element of surprise is the only advantage you get. He moved. He didn't run. He launched. He kicked off the starting line, the concrete cracking slightly under his toe. He was a green streak, passing the confused students before they even processed the command. Hey! There are no countdowns in real battles. Follow that kid. Izuku was already inside the city. He turned a corner and saw his first target. A one-pointer. A wheeled drone with target locking arms. Target acquired, the robot beeped. Izuku didn't stop. He didn't slow down to punch it. Weakness, the visual sensor cluster on the head. The neck joint is exposed. As he sprinted toward it, he leaped. He ran 2 steps up the wall of the adjacent building, wall bounding, gaining height. He pushed off the wall, diving toward the robot like a missile. He didn't use a fist. He used his momentum. He swung his leg in a chopping motion. Smash, he whispered. His heel connected with the robot's neck. Crunch. The metal sheared. The head of the robot flew off. The body sparked and collapsed. Izuku landed in a roll, coming up to his feet without losing speed. 1 point. He kept running. Izuku grinned, the adrenaline flooding his system. This is going to be fun. He scanned the street. 2 2-pointers ahead. He revved the engine. The green lightning flared brighter. The jet was cleared for takeoff.